What's up, everyone? I'm incredibly excited to officially bring to you probably the most powerful SpyFu product ever. What we've done is we've tightly integrated with ChatGPT so you can get SpyFu data streamed directly into your chats. So not only can you ask it basic questions like, what keywords does my blog rank on, but having that information at its digital sort of fingertips gives it superpowers. It's so much better, more powerful than I could have ever imagined. And here's the crazy thing is that right now it's 100% free. You can start using it immediately and you're not going to pay us anything if you don't want to. We may not keep it that way forever. But for right now, I just want to get this value in your hands. And I think it's probably the most powerful thing and groundbreaking that I've ever seen. If you've ever used ChatGPT to do keyword research, maybe ask it what keywords your blog ranks on, or just what keywords are most important in your niche. Sometimes it'll say, I don't have access to that information, go someplace else. Other times it'll give you something like a small, medium, and large kind of thing, or it'll just sort of wave its hands. And frankly, it does a pretty good job having absolutely no data, but just kind of knowing how the world works or whatever. It comes up with things that look like truthy, but the data that it gives is just never correct. I mean, it's not correct. It's potentially orders of magnitude off. It looks data-like, but it's just not correct. So what I wanted to do is get keyword data, good keyword data into ChatGPT so that people can use it. I want people to be able to pull in, what keywords does this particular page or this website rank on, whether that's you or whether that's your competitors. And if you can imagine that, you might be thinking, okay, cool, I can do that. I can request, for my website, I can see the keywords that this page ranks on, and it's just going to pull down a nice little table for me. And it does do that. But what's crazy, and here's where it becomes wildly powerful, is that it uses that information, right? It then uses that information to make decisions, to give you better strategic advice, to give you better tactical advice. Like ordinarily you give it your page and it'll look and you ask it, well, what's the best H1? What's the best title? It'll do that based on the content and kind of infer some stuff, but it actually doesn't know which keywords might get searched more. It just doesn't know. It guesses, right? And when you can give it that data, it goes from being pretty good, pretty smart, a pretty useful tool to help you out, to oh my God, this thing's incredibly smart. Let's have a look at some examples. But first, let me show you what I mean when I say that ChatGPT makes things up, specifically that it makes up keyword data. I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of the exact same prompt. The first one I'm going to give to just normal ChatGPT. Actually, I'm using GPT-5 Pro to give it the best possible chance. And the second one, I'm going to give it to the SpyFu GPT. And the differences will be really obvious, but they might not be all that obvious at first glance because ChatGPT is shockingly good at making absolute garbage look like real data. So here's, normal ChatGPT. And I'm going to give it this prompt. I need to drive traffic to a brand new product in at-home teeth whitening. Give me a list of opportunities, 10 paid keywords and 10 organic keywords with volume and ad cost, right? So it goes out and it's GPT Pro. And so it takes a bit of time, maybe 3-4 minutes or something. And it's going to search the web and it finds these sources is what it does. And it formats them in this sort of table format that looks pretty real, right? So it's here's the search volume, here's the CPC, etc. The only problem is that its source is keywordspy.com. Now, I happen to know that keywordspy.com was SpyFu's first copycat competitor back in 2008. They lasted for about 8 or 9 years, but they haven't updated their data. They've basically been dead for 8-ish years. In fact, if we click on this, there's nothing here. This is the source. None of these links will show up. You can actually still go to keywordspy.com, but the site is broken and it doesn't actually do anything. But rest assured that none of the data is anywhere near recent. There might be some data in here, but it's super old and useless. So that's one of its sources. The other source that it uses is just this random blog article. And it's saying from here, it's inferring something. It's saying teeth whitening at home gets 12,000 searches and has a CPC of $35. If we search this whole page for the keyword teeth whitening at home, it doesn't show up. And there's no like list of keywords on here at all, or as near as I can tell, any cost per click numbers. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, hope, guessing. I don't know exactly what it's doing. The third source that it uses is a site called unicorn.com. Now, note that it's basically coming up with a CPC bid of $45, $30 for some of these, and a certain amount of searches. When we go into these suckers, we will see that there is no CPC data period on here. There's something like volume domination and ranking domination and a variety of things, including an estimate of search volume on here, but nothing that would indicate anything having to do with CPC, but yet it's completely, it's throwing it in there, right? So then we go down and it kind of combines these two things, right? It's combining this plus the organic and putting them all together and giving us this set of ideas of search volume and CPC. Now, this would all be like, okay, if any of these things were even close to correct, right? You know, like if these were relatively, like if they are accurate relative to each other, right? Like I've seen it do things like small, medium, or high, medium, and low. And I kind of assume that that's correct. But in fact, it probably isn't. In fact, these things probably don't have any relative weighting whatsoever. It's pretty much just made up. I'll give you an example. So let's look at teeth bleaching kits. Now, intuitively, I don't think that that's a commonly, like when people are searching for teeth whitening, I don't think that they're searching for tooth bleaching or teeth bleaching kits. So let's have a look. On SpyFu, teeth bleaching kits gets actually no searches or less than 20. And we actually don't see it in the fresh search volume. If we switch over to kit, it does show up. So we get 270, but that's a far cry from the 33,000. Just to triangulate, we do the same thing over here on Ahrefs and we get 200 searches. Now, our data is updated every second or every few seconds. We're continuously pulling in fresh search volume and you can actually see it live as it goes into the site. I'm going to tell you that we're right and they're wrong. Let's look at a second one. Home tooth whitening kit, 5,400, right? So relative, this is kind of what we're looking for here. So home teeth whitening kit, we get 44 searches per month. And that shows up in our fresh search volume as well with 32. They're saying it was 5,400, right? And here's what Ahrefs shows. They have never actually seen the keyword in their clickstream. So they have no data for this, like ever. So really untrustworthy data. Now, let's see what happens when we use the SpyFu GPT. So we give it the exact same prompt. I need to drive traffic for brand new product in at-home teeth whitening. Give me a list of opportunities, 10 paid keywords, 10 organic with search volume and cost. So first thing it does, of course, just based on that prompt, is it goes out to SpyFu and pulls the data via the API, right? It's going to make this kind of decision on its own. Even if we don't tell it specifically that it needs to go pull the data or something, it just knows. So it goes out and it pulls the data, and I'm going to spare you sort of the process of going and looking on SpyFu, but these data points match up, right? The CPC data is coming directly from Google Keyword Planner, and the search volume is coming from our clickstream data that, like I said, is updated continuously. So all this data is correct. And the cool thing about it is that, what's interesting is that the next steps for these kinds of things, this one, is that, we're going to build a CPC campaign, or we're going to build focused content around certain keywords, right? Like, there's next steps that ChatGPT intuitively is going to take you down and you're going to use it for. And it does a great job of doing that. Unfortunately, the context that it has, that it built for itself in this chat, is just hallucinated trash, right? But in the SpyFu one, it's real data. And so ultimately it's going to make prioritized decisions, good decisions that compound as the chat progresses. You don't see ChatGPT making this stuff up because it does such a good job of formatting it. One thing I want you to pay attention to is that in the SpyFu GPT, these these tables and this data looks about the same as this data, but this data is real and this data is just made up. One of my favorite things about working with the SpyFu GPT is that it meets you exactly where you are. Sometimes when you're working with a tool, whether it's SpyFu or SEMrush or Ahrefs or whatever, you might know what you wanted to do, but like, where do you start, right? So with SpyFu GPT, you can just tell it what you want to do, and it'll figure out what data it needs and guide you through step by step. So just as an example, my sons both play club baseball, and their coach, the owner of the team, knows what my company does, like roughly. And so he told me he's building a website for the team and asked if I had any tips. Now, normally that's like a really tough one, right? Like I can set him up with SpyFu, but there's a lot of judgment calls along the way, positioning, CRO, etc. And so even to explain it, like I'm never quite sure where to start, you know? I can give him like all the power tools in the world and lessons from my 25 years of building a business on the internet, but really, no matter what, his first step is to get something out the door, right? Get something live. And the SpyFu GPT miraculously gets that done. I think maybe even better than I could. And it's well informed. It meets you right where you are, wherever you are. So check this out. We're going to start with the simplest possible conversation starter. How can I improve my website? So I've already done this. And what it does is it sort of starts you out with like this simple step-by-step of how you would go about starting to build a website, gives it kind of like this context and gives you an outline of where you could go. But ultimately, I'm like, okay, I don't want you to run an analysis for my domain because I don't have one yet. So I said, well, it's a new website for a baseball club based in Scottsdale, Arizona. Can you help with that? And so it says, perfect. Thanks for clarifying. And so it starts to lay out like these steps specifically for this Scottsdale baseball content cluster. Talks about how it's going to create some blog posts, some event pages, a schema markup. It figures out how it's going to create some paid ads and some social and community growth, where it's going to do that, Instagram, TikTok, engage local sports influencers, etc. And then it says, since your site is new, we won't have much SpyFu data to pull yet. Of course, you're not going to have any. So would you like me to start with your domain if it exists yet, or competitor clubs first? And I'm like, I mean, this is great, right? It's just like walking us right through the whole thing. And I'm like, start with some competitor clubs. Do you already know them? And it's like, great choice, starting with competitor clubs. Sure, I already know them. It sort of figures them out, right? It is blending like this idea of what it knows, right? These are actual, baseball clubs that my sons play against. And it's taking that and combining it with its knowledge of SpyFu. And now here it's going to say, okay, next steps. I can pull a keyword gap analysis and explore competitor pages, camps, tryouts, etc., and extract structured content ideas using the SpyFu SEO reports. It's going to build a localized content plan, blog topics, landing pages, summer baseball camps in Scottsdale, etc. And it says, would you like me to run a SpyFu keyword plus domain analysis for a few of these competitor clubs? It's like, okay, yeah, do that. Here it goes. Talking to SpyFu API. So now it started like, but what we're doing is we're combining kind of ChatGPT's inherent knowledge of, sort of the local area. And, because that's the thing, is that one of the challenges that I would have in describing what to do, right, is there's like SpyFu research, which is very online. And then there's like the local research, which is all about local marketing and knowing like what baseball clubs exist. And that's kind of like semi-online, semi-offline. Anyway, so it's combining these things, and now it's going to go out and figure out, which of these things are worthwhile competitors to emulate. So it pulls all of them all at once, right? Beautiful. Pulls all of the, which ones are ranking the most. And then it says, here's your top performers. AZ Elite Baseball Academy and the Scottsdale Little League. Okay, makes sense. Most clubs don't get huge traffic. Makes sense. So it's winnable. Many rank in the 40s. Page 4 through 5 of Google, leaving plenty of room. And then it comes up with some content gaps. Do you want me to pull the top keywords these competitors are ranking on so we can build content and ad campaigns for them? Yes, perfect. Talking to the SpyFu API. So then it pulls all these keywords. Perfect. Baseball clubs near me, baseball academy, elite baseball, T-ball, all the things, right? And it's going to figure out the key SEO wins. And then it says, all right, let's build a landing page for Scottsdale Youth Baseball League, Scottsdale T-ball, Scottsdale baseball camps and clinics, and Scottsdale Elite baseball teams 8U through 16U. Perfect. That fits. I mean, probably not T-ball. I don't think that they're doing T-ball, but that's okay. Do you want me to take this a step further and map out a ready-to-use content plan with titles, meta descriptions, blogs, landing pages based on the competitor keywords? Yeah, give me the content plan. We're going to make a homepage optimized for local SEO, written in a conversion style, AIDA, structured like a real homepage, heroes, benefits, programs, testimonials, etc. And so then here's the draft, headline, subhead, CTA, register for now for the fall 2025 season, our mission, right? Programs, why choose us, testimonials, CTA. I could just ask this thing to build the HTML, right? I guess selfishly, maybe it's how powerful the SpyFu GPT is in the right hands that might be my personal favorite part. When you know exactly what you're looking for, the SpyFu GPT is insanely powerful. I had this trending post pop up in my Reddit the other day. It's like this website that went from 190,000 visitors to 5.7 million visitors in 10 weeks. It's called AIinvest.com or ainvest.com, like AI Invest. And apparently their strategy is like, I mean, they're just doing a whole bunch of AI generated content. And so people are talking about it. And I mean, it's a pretty trending thing, right? At first I'm like, I don't really think that this is probably legit, but then I just plugged into SpyFu, and sure enough, I mean, look at this sucker. It's just growing like crazy, right? Like that's useful. So I went and I looked at the site, right? And I'm like scrolling through it. And, you know, generally I was expecting to see pretty much trash, but I read through it and I'm like, this is pretty decent, like reasonably insightful. Like it's just, they're just publishing quite a bit of stuff. And they're doing it probably with AI at scale, but it's not, you know, it seems to me to be decent quality. So I happen to have a friend who has a website that's similar, maybe in the same space. It's called earningshub.com. And so I sent him a text and I'm like, dude, you should reverse engineer the SEO for this website because they're crushing it, right? They're doing a great job. And then I was like, wait, hold my beer. And I popped that into the SpyFu GPT. I said, I need to reverse engineer the SEO strategy for ainvest.com. They're definitely doing something right. What are they doing and when did it change? So it makes these 5 initial calls to the SpyFu API. And it says, here's what they're doing, right? It says they publish news style articles, optimized for huge brands. And they have, and here's what their top pages are. Here's what their top click pages are. Here's how many they get. Their best performers blend a mix of corporate news plus speculative finance headlines. They're capitalizing on crypto and meme coin buzz. So they've got like these particular keywords, and this shows a shift towards crypto meme coin content, which is much faster moving, but drives spikes in traffic. And they are using, they're using this SEO metrics to confirm authority. And when things changed, it looks like the big shift happened about 2 to 3 months ago. They've had some explosive gains on certain keywords. So then they summarize what the strategy is: news-driven SEO, SERP piggybacking, timely content, freshness advantage. They talk about what changed. And then I'm like, okay, so this is what we all ultimately want to do, right? So we want to apply it to the website. So I said, yeah, I'd like to apply this to the earningshub.com website. Let's translate that into a playbook. and a custom SEO roadmap for Earnings Hub. So obviously it's talking to the SpyFu API about earningshubs.com, like what their SEO footprint looks like. And ultimately it comes up with a playbook, and I'm going to like scroll through a bit of this. You can kind of see what's going on. It's going to figure out a way to build out a content framework and a roadmap. But I'm going to give you the big picture here. Earnings Hub can outflank AI Invest by combining their news trend playbook with your inherent authority on earnings. Instead of just piggybacking news, you can anchor it to financial performance, which gives you credibility plus clickability. Would you like me to build you a 30-day content calendar with daily posts plus target keywords plus angles to outrank AI Invest, or a competitor combat map with earnings whispers, Zach, so you can see untapped gaps in the earnings niche? So those are some pretty cool angles that it can give me, like some directions to give me. But ultimately, I said, no, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me how to build a content machine. Like, how can I figure out how can I figure out what content to build at scale, and specifically, how are they going about it, right? And so what follows is just this thing breaking down exactly how they're going about it, and like what APIs they can use, from Google Trends to Newswire feeds to SpyFu to stocks, like Yahoo Finance, Google Finance, TradingView API. We're talking about combining the SpyFu API and the Earnings Hub calendars. We're talking about looking at search volumes from Google Trends plus SpyFu, like live search volume, newsworthiness from SEC filings, combining estimating keyword value using SpyFu CPC plus SEO clicks, and ultimately figuring out this is breaking it down from an input layer to detecting the trends, to deciding what to cover, to generating the content and how to do that using templates and so on, and ultimately how to distribute it, and how to get a feedback loop. And then it says sort of, here's where your strategic your edge is, and gives you this overall idea. And then it kind of recommends you could either take this in the direction of a low code, no code, or a normal engineering process. So as a software guy, I know how these things work. What I know is that what we need to do is get a little bit more detail on each of these things. We need to break this down into several larger tasks, and then take each of those tasks and break it down into kind of these subtasks, so that we're not talking about a high level here where we're looking at the input layer and decision layer and so on as that's not a spec. We need to define these things in ways that a developer hypothetically could just take and implement. We're probably going to use AI to do it, but we need to break it down into an actual spec. But this is where we start. We start at the high level, and then we work to each sort of bullet point and build those bullet points into technical specs. So that's ultimately what I'm telling you to do. I'd like for you to write a detailed spec that I could give to a developer or a client cursor Claude Code. So it does that. It basically builds out some specs, and it's this is a pretty good spec, right? And I'm actually, you need to break it down even further so I can hand it off to a developer. You've left too many questions on it answered. So you just kind of push it until it gives you the level of detail that you need. And by the time we're done here, we're actually talking about actual API endpoints. These are the SpyFu endpoints that it's going to use. We're talking about Yahoo Finance Alpha Advantage API endpoints. We're talking about CoinGecko API endpoints and Google Trends API endpoints. And we're going to mash all those things together, and it's going to ultimately generate a Python script that we can use to generate this content at scale and ultimately publish it and then distribute it, right? This is a superpower, you guys, right? This is not possible just with ChatGPT alone. In fact, I used ChatGPT. I built this, and then I was I kind of wonder what I could get if I used, ChatGPT Pro with Deep Research, right? So I give it the exact same thing, and you know how this guy is. It's going to run oh, well, deep research is going to ask a set of follow-up questions, and I answer it basically. Just give me all the things. I'm not really going to give you, I want the technical SEO and I want the keyword research. Give me all the stuff, right? Just reverse engineer the strategy, giving it the same exact prompt. And it runs, and it runs probably for like 8-10 minutes or something like that, right? And this is Deep Research Pro, so the $200 version of ChatGPT. It's crunching, it's working really hard, and it's doing its absolute best, pulling everything that it possibly can. But at the end of the day, it actually does not get really what their strategy is. What it does tell me is like that hypothetically investing.com is bigger and so is investors.com and so on, but it can't get me any real insights. And ultimately, when I say how can I replicate this for my site, earningshub.com, it starts to talk about, well, here's what you should do. You need to have a directory called /news. And you need to have it starts looking at my robots.txt and stuff like that. It's not really coming up with any kind of content strategy. It's saying things, but this is nowhere near the same level, right? We're on a completely different playing field. And it's pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. I can't believe how deep this thing will go if you keep going with it and give it the direction that you want. It's incredibly it's an incredible superpower. And not to mention the fact that what this thing outputs, just this analysis all by itself, is like thought leadership quality analysis, right? If I spent like a week or 3 days doing this sort of deep dive just in this first couple of questions and answers, I don't know for sure that I would produce this quality. I feel like I think I would. But it's doing a great job, like really good, really high quality work. And all it takes is giving it, who knew? All it takes is giving it real data to be the game changer. So anyway, hope you love it.